I'd been with the company for a few years, but my career felt stalled. No matter how hard I worked or how many extra hours I put in, I couldn't break through to the next level. The competition was fierce, and it always seemed like someone was more impressive, better connected, or just luckier than me. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't thriving either. I wanted more, felt capable of more, but didn't know how to move forward. Olivia, my supervisor, was a woman everyone admired and to some extent feared. She was in her mid-40s, sharp professional, and uncompromising. She never shared anything personal at work, and no one knew much about her outside of it. Some speculated about her private life, but there was no evidence, no mention of a spouse, no photos on her desk, no casual talk about weekend plans, just work. She expected the same dedication from everyone else. Well, it was a typical Wednesday evening, and I was exhausted. Most people had left, but I stayed late to finish her report. When I finally packed up and headed for the elevator, all I could think about was getting home, taking a hot shower, and maybe having a drink before bed. I stepped into the elevator, leaned against the wall, and rubbed my temples. Just as the doors were closing, Olivia stepped in. "David," she said with a slight nod. "Miss Carter," I replied, standing taller. The doors closed and the elevator started moving. It was just the two of us, and I felt the usual tension of being alone with your boss, especially one like her. I never quite knew how to act around Olivia. She wasn't unkind, but she wasn't exactly approachable either. She was the kind of boss you respected, but didn't joke with. Um, we rode in silence for a few seconds before the elevator jolted to a stop. The lights flickered, then went dark. "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath. Olivia, unfazed, pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. She pressed several buttons on the panel, but nothing happened. Then she sighed and hit the emergency button. A crackling voice came through the speaker. "There's a citywide power outage. We're aware of the situation, but it may take some time to restore system functionality. You'll have to sit tight." "How long?" Olivia asked, her voice steady. "At least an hour, maybe longer." A knot formed in my stomach. Being stuck in a metal box wasn't my idea of fun, especially with my boss. I wasn't claustrophobic, but something about being trapped with no control made me uneasy. Olivia sighed again and leaned against the wall. "Great," I said softly, trying to stay calm. "So what do we do now?" She looked at me, then at her phone. "We wait." Um, we stood in silence for a while. I could hear the faint hum of the emergency light and occasional muffled sounds from outside the shaft. Time seemed to stretch. I shifted on my feet, feeling restless. "So do you think this'll mess up anything important?" I asked, just to break the quiet. Olivia gave me a look like she was deciding whether to entertain small talk. Finally, she said, "Probably not, but I have a meeting in the morning that might need rescheduling." "Right," I said with an awkward nod, clearing my throat. Another long silence followed. "You seem nervous," she said suddenly. I laughed, but it sounded forced. "Yeah, it's not every day you get stuck in an elevator with your boss." She raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. I shifted again. "Do you ever get nervous? I mean, ever?" For a moment, I thought she'd brush it off, but she tilted her head slightly. "Not often." There was something about how she said it calm, direct, like a fact rather than an opinion. "Must be nice," I said. She looked at me again. "What makes you nervous?" I hesitated, not wanting to push too far. Feeling stuck, I admitted before I could stop myself. The words spilled out, and I realized how true they were, not just in this elevator, but in my career, my life. She didn't respond right away, just studied me. To my surprise, she gave a small nod like she understood. For the first time since the elevator stopped, I felt less trapped. The silence stretched on. I checked my phone, no signal. Olivia stood with her arms crossed, unbothered, waiting. My mind wouldn't quiet, though. It wasn't just being stuck. It was being stuck with her. Um, After a while, I shifted, trying to ease the tension. "So have you been in this situation before?" She looked at me. "Once, a long time ago, I was in college, stuck in a train car for hours. People were panicking, but I just sat there and waited. I figured it was pointless to waste energy on something I couldn't control." I smirked. "Sounds like you." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. I leaned against the wall, glancing at the emergency light. "You don't seem like the type to panic." "I'm not." She tilted her head. You do. I wouldn't say that, I mumbled, though my obvious nervousness betrayed me. You are nervous, she pointed out. I exhaled. It's not every day I get a one-on-one with my boss in a broken elevator. That made her smile just a little the first time I'd seen her look anything but serious. Milan. I hesitated before speaking again. Can I ask you something? She gave a slight nod. Why do you keep everything so private? I mean, nobody at the office knows much about you. Olivia looked at me briefly before turning away. Because it's work. Personal life is personal. Yeah, but even the most private people let something slip sometimes. She smirked faintly. And you, David? What do people at work know about you? I thought about it. Not much, I guess. Exactly. She met my gaze, more focused this time. You keep your personal life private too, so why ask me? I rubbed the back of my neck. Fair point. She sighed and leaned against the opposite wall. But if you really want to know, it's simpler this way. When people think they know you, they have expectations. I frowned. Expectations? She paused, then for the first time seemed to weigh whether to say more. I've had people assume they could get something from me, she admitted. That my success means I owe them something. Or that I should be generous. Tom. I nodded slowly, getting it. She didn't spell it out, but I understood. That's frustrating, I said. She gave a small, humorless laugh. You have no idea. I hesitated before speaking again. You mean guys. She shot me a sharp look, but there was no anger, just tired amusement. Among others, I thought about it. Olivia wasn't just successful, she had power. I could see how that led to assumptions about her. That sucks, I said finally. She smirked. Very articulate, I chuckled. I'm just saying I get it. People don't always see you for who you are. She looked at me longer this time, then nodded, surprising me. Exactly. I shifted, feeling like I'd crossed an invisible line. I get it too, I said. Not in the same way, but I work my ass off and still feel stuck. Like no matter what I do, I can't move forward. Olivia's expression softened slightly. And do you think you deserve more? I shrugged. I think I've earned it. A long silence hung between us. Then she said something I never expected. You probably have. I blinked. Wait, what? She exhaled. I've seen your work. You're one of the few who actually put in the effort. But effort isn't always enough. The right people have to notice at the right time. I scoffed. So it's luck. Sometimes, she said. Sometimes it's just knowing how to stand out. That hit me hard because it was exactly my problem. I did my job, worked hard, but never made myself impossible to ignore. Here. I opened my mouth to say something else, but the elevator lights flickered back on. A second later, the motor hummed and the car jolted, then started moving. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Olivia glanced at her watch. Well, she said, pushing off the wall, our little adventure's over. I nodded, still processing what she'd said. As the doors opened, she stepped out first. Before I could follow, she paused and looked back. Think about what I said, David. Then she walked away, leaving me standing there, feeling like I'd just learned something big, something that could change everything. Man, that elevator moment stuck with me. It wasn't just being trapped, it was the conversation. Olivia had never talked to me like that before. I wasn't sure she'd talk to anyone at work like that. She was always strict, professional, all business. But for those minutes in the stalled elevator, she was different. You probably have echoed in my head for days. I kept working as usual, but something had shifted. I started paying more attention in meetings, speaking up when I had something to add instead of keeping my head down. I made sure my ideas weren't just thrown out, but actually heard. Then one Friday afternoon, something even more unexpected happened. I was at my desk finishing a report when an email popped up. The subject line was simple. Let's talk. It was from Olivia. I hesitated before opening it. David, if you have time after work, please stop by my office. I'd like to discuss something. Olivia, that was it. No details, no explanation, just a direct request. I slumped back in my chair, my mind racing through every possible reason she might want to talk. Had I done something wrong? Was she going to bring up our elevator conversation? Or was this purely work-related? I tried to focus for the rest of the day, but it was tough. By the time the office started emptying around 6, my nerves were frayed. I took a deep breath and headed to Olivia's office. Her door was closed, but the light was on. I knocked twice. "Come in." Bah. I opened the door and stepped inside. She was at her desk, but her blazer was off, and she didn't look like the untouchable boss I was used to. She motioned to the chair across from her. "Sit," I did. For a moment, she said nothing, just studied me like she was trying to figure something out. Then she leaned back and spoke. "You've been more engaged this week." I paused. "Oh yeah, I guess so." She nodded. "Good. That's why I asked you here." I straightened slightly. "Okay." She exhaled, drumming her fingers on the desk. "I've been thinking about our talk in the elevator, how hard you work, how hard it is to stand out." I didn't say anything, just waited. Opportunities don't always come to you, David. Sometimes you have to take them. Meh. I frowned slightly. "What are you saying?" She tilted her head. "I have a project that needs more hours, more effort. It's not an official promotion, but if you handle it well, it'll position you for one." I blinked. "You want me to take on more work?" She smirked faintly. "That's one way to look at it. The other is that I'm giving you a chance to prove yourself." I thought about it. This was what I'd been waiting for, a chance to stand out. I had no partner, no kids, nothing holding me back from extra hours. I nodded. "I'll do it." She looked pleased. "Good." She reached for a folder on her desk and slid it toward me. "This has all the details. Take the weekend to review it, and we'll talk Monday." I picked it up and flipped through the pages. It was a huge project, bigger than anything I'd tackled before, but it could really boost my career. I looked back at Olivia. "Thank you for this opportunity." Hmm. She nodded, but before I could stand, she said something surprising. "I'm also grabbing coffee tomorrow morning. If you're free, you're welcome to join." I froze for a second. Coffee with Olivia. I wasn't sure if this was still work-related or something more personal. She must have sensed my hesitation because she added, "If you're busy, no pressure." I shook my head quickly. "No, I'm free." She gave a small smile. "Good. 10 a.m. at the cafe across from the office." I nodded and stood. "I'll see you there." As I left her office, my mind was racing. This wasn't just about work anymore. It was something else. For the first time in a long time, I had no idea where this was going. I barely slept that night. The coffee invitation wasn't just coffee. It felt like something more, something I couldn't quite pin down. Olivia had never asked me to meet outside work before, and the way she said it, casual and no pressure, made it feel even bigger. When I got to the cafe on Saturday morning, I was a mix of curious and nervous. I spotted Olivia right away, sitting at a corner table in a black sweater instead of her usual office attire. She looked different, relaxed, less like the untouchable boss, more like a regular person. As I approached, she looked up and gave a small nod. "You're on time," I smirked. Figured being late wouldn't make a great impression. She chuckled and gestured to the seat across from her. "Sit." Um, there was a brief silence as we sipped our coffee. It was strange sitting across from her like this. At work, there was always a clear hierarchy. Here, it felt almost equal. "Thanks for coming," she said finally, setting her cup down. "Of course," I replied. "I'll admit the invite surprised me." She looked at me for a moment. "You're a hard worker, David. I see it. But I see you've been stuck." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess that's fair." She sighed and glanced out the window. "I know that feeling better than you'd think." I frowned slightly. "You," she turned back to me, "you probably think I've always had it easy, but I didn't climb the ranks without struggle." I shrugged. "I mean, you're the boss." She gave a soft laugh. "I am. But it wasn't easy. It took years to get here, and even then the fight didn't stop." Pumbaya. I leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, taking another sip of coffee. "People look at me and see authority power. They think I don't need anything from anyone." I nodded. That's exactly how I saw her at work. But the truth is, she continued, "It's lonely. Nobody really sees me, David. Not as a person, just a title." I didn't know what to say. It was strange hearing her talk so openly. This was a side of Olivia I never imagined existed. She looked at me again. "That's why I opened up in the elevator. You seem different." Different how she tilted her head, like you actually listened, like you didn't see me as the boss, but as a person. I swallowed hard. I guess I never thought of you any other way until then. But once you opened up, things changed. She nodded slowly. That's why I wanted this talk. I don't do this often, David, letting people in. But with you, she paused. I feel like I can talk to you. Well, how's you? Her words made my chest tighten. I looked down at my coffee. I get it, you know. She raised an eyebrow. Do you? I nodded, not on the same level, but I know what it's like to feel invisible, to work hard and still feel like nobody notices you. She looked at me for a moment. Your ex? I tensed slightly. Yeah. You mentioned in the elevator she cheated. I let out a small breath. Yeah, I thought we were building something real. Turned out I was just an option. Olivia's expression softened. I'm sorry, I shrugged. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it hurt less, she said, her tone sincere. No judgment, no condescension, just understanding. For a moment we sat in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It felt safe. And she took another sip of coffee and smiled slightly. So about the project, I gave a small laugh. Back to business already. She tilted her head. What, you thought this was a date? My face warmed a little. I mean, She chuckled. Relax, David. I'm just messing with you. I exhaled and shook my head. You're impossible. She grinned and leaned forward slightly. But for the record, I'm enjoying this. I met her gaze. Yeah, me too. She nodded. Good. Then after a pause, she said, maybe we should do this again sometime. I hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. She seemed satisfied with that, and for the first time since I started at the company, I realized Olivia wasn't just my boss. She was something more. I wasn't sure what that meant yet, but I was willing to find out. Mm. Months after that coffee meeting, things at work had changed, though, not obviously. I still did my job, showed up on time, put in the same effort. But now Olivia noticed. She started including me in more meetings, assigning bigger projects, even asking for my input on things she hadn't before. It wasn't just about the promotion, though I did move up in the company. The real change was how we saw each other. We started getting coffee regularly, then dinners. Then one night she invited me to her apartment. That night, everything shifted. I stood at her doorstep feeling like I'd stepped into something I wasn't sure I was ready for. It wasn't nerves, not exactly, just an awareness that something was different, that she was different. When Olivia opened the door dressed casually in jeans and a sweatshirt, her usual sharpness was softened. You made it, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Her apartment was stylish, but warm minimalist furniture, clean lines, a few personal touches that made it feel lived in. I hadn't pictured her space before, but it suited her. She poured us each a glass of wine, and we sat in her living room, talking like we often did. But this time it felt heavier, like we both knew something we hadn't said aloud. Then she looked at me. David. Something in her tone made my chest tighten. Yeah. She paused. Do you regret this? I frowned. Regret what? She sighed, swirling the wine in her glass. Us. Whatever this is. I leaned forward. Olivia, we haven't even defined what this is. She gave a small laugh, but there was a hint of nervousness unusual for her. I know, she admitted. But we both know it's something. I set my glass down. Do you regret it? She didn't answer right away, just looked at me like she was weighing whether I was worth the risk. Finally, she shook her head. No, I don't. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding. Good, because I don't either. Her shoulders relaxed. David, this isn't exactly conventional. A boss and an employee. I know, I said softly, cutting her off. But we're not just that now, are we? She stayed quiet for a moment, then reached out, brushing her fingers against mine. It was light, barely a touch, but it was enough to confirm that whatever this was, whatever it was becoming, was real. After that night, we were careful. At work, nothing changed. We stayed professional, kept it discreet. But outside work, we were together. It wasn't a wild, reckless romance. It was slow, deliberate. There were stolen moments, whispered conversations, late-night dinners, early morning texts. Olivia finally let herself be with someone after years of keeping her walls up. And for the first time since my ex, I wanted something real again. A year later, I was standing in her apartment watching her make coffee in the kitchen. It hit me, this was my life now. I had the career I'd aimed for, the respect I'd wanted, and her. I never could have imagined a stalled elevator would change my life. The story of David and Olivia reveals a powerful lesson about the unexpected moments that can redefine our lives and the courage it takes to embrace vulnerability. Being stuck in an elevator was more than a mere inconvenience. It was a chance for two people to see each other beyond their roles, boss and employee, and connect on a human level. Olivia's openness about her loneliness and David's honesty about feeling stuck teach us that true connection often begins with listening and sharing authentically, even in the most unlikely circumstances. Their journey shows that life's turning points don't always come with fanfare. Sometimes they're quiet, like a conversation in a broken elevator, yet they can lead to profound change both in career and in love. It reminds us to stay open to opportunities, whether for growth or connection, and to have the bravery to step into the unknown when something real is at stake. This story tugs at the heart because it's a reminder that we all carry unseen struggles, and a single moment of understanding can shift everything. Have you ever had an unexpected encounter that changed your perspective or opened a new chapter in your life? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how these moments have shaped you. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join our community for more heartfelt tales that explore the beauty of human connection and personal growth. Let's keep the conversation going and inspire each other with life's transformative lessons